yesterday, before I went live, I saw a headline that said that Boeing machinists could possibly go on strike as of this morning. So I was expecting to hear an announcement early this morning, but apparently they decided to go on strike at midnight last night. And I want to show you why this is such a huge deal. Let's go to this clip here. I believe this is from CNBC. And we're going to dive into this. Like, again, what does this mean for everybody? Will it affect you as someone who is, you fly? Like, if you're a frequent flyer, will this affect you? Will this impact you in any way, shape, or form? We're going to get into all of that. Let's dive in.
Boeing's machinists union going on strike for the first time in 16 years after rejecting the jet maker's latest contract offer. Our Phil LeBeau is on the ground in Washington State with the latest. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Carl. We are outside the 737 MAX facility here in Renton, Washington. There's no production going on this morning. Why? Because these guys who are usually in working on a 737 are out here picketing. Late last night, the Machinist Union announced that 94.7% of their members who voted rejected the tentative agreement between Boeing and the union. Not only that, 96% then voted to go on strike. The deal included a 25% raise over 4 years. Time and again, I've heard from members saying that's not enough. We thought we'd get closer to 40%. That's what they're looking for. So 33,000 machinists have walked off the job. This is the first strike since 2008. And
we're going to pause here for just a second because I do want to show you something about these numbers. So some of you may see this and you say, wait, 25% raise over 4 years, like that sounds like it's a good deal. Why is that a problem? So they were asking for at least 40%. This is in the Seattle area. That's an expensive place to live. So when we've gone over the out of reach cost of living report for 2024, again, like there's a certain amount of money that you need to make per hour to do well in that particular area. It's the most expensive area in Washington state. So that 25% raise, remember, that was just over 4 years. It's not all at once. And they were asking for 40. So just keep that in mind.
For Boeing management, it increases pressure to find a way to get a deal done. The company releasing a statement saying the message was clear that the tentative agreement we reached with the IAM leadership was not acceptable to the members. We remain committed to resetting our relationship with our employees and the union, and we are ready to get back to the table to reach a new agreement. How long that will take remains to be seen. As you take a look at shares of Boeing, keep in mind that the estimated costs, and they're all over the map, anywhere between $500 million and $1 billion, depending on how long this strike lasts. The history between the machinists and Boeing is not good in terms of resolving strikes quickly. The last one in 2008 went 58 days. On average, if you look at the last four, they go about 45 to 60 days, depending on which strike you look at. Bottom line is this, guys. The machinists want more than 25%. They'd also like to have the eyes of these workers who are on strike. They wanted to get closer to 40%. Guys, back to you.
Boeing's machine.
Yeah, so that's a big deal here for Boeing. Again, like I said yesterday, I was waiting to see if they were actually going to go on strike. I want to go into a little bit more detail here, and then I'm going to tell you who this would impact. So striking Boeing factory workers say they are ready to hold out for a better contract. So yeah, this is the big news in the world of labor today. Blue collar workers from Boeing walked picket lines in the Pacific Northwest instead of building airplanes on Friday after they were overwhelmingly rejected a proposed contract that would have raised their wages by 25% over 4 years. 33,000 machinists will not disrupt airline flights anytime soon. So listen to this. But it is expected to shut down production of Boeing's best-selling jetliners, marking yet another setback for a company already dealing with billions of dollars in financial losses and a damaged reputation. The company said it was taking steps to conserve cash while its CEO looks for better ways to come up with a contract that the unionized factory workers will accept. So let's talk about the reputation here for just a second before we get into the rest of this. We also got to remember Boeing, there were two men that were destined to testify against Boeing. They end up dead. Boeing has not had a good reputation in the past couple of years because of the way that they've handled like production, trying to speed through processes, and other people, choosing to be whistleblowers about that, ultimately have met their demise. So the company just does not have a good reputation. And now they have 33,000 machinists that have decided to go on strike. The stock for Boeing fell 3.7% today, bringing its decline for the year to nearly 40%. The strike started soon after a regional branch of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers reported that in a Thursday vote, 94.6% of participating members rejected the contract offer that the union's own bargaining committee had endorsed, and 96% of them voted to go on strike. So that's a pretty significant amount. Shortly after midnight, striking workers stood outside the Boeing factory in Renton, Washington, with signs reading, "Historic contract, my ass. Have you seen the damn housing prices?" What I tell you guys, car horns honked and boombox played songs including Twisted Sisters, "We're Not Gonna Take It," and Taylor Swift's "Look What You Made Me Do." I'm loving all of this. I'm loving all of this. "We're not gonna take it. No, we're not gonna take it." Many of the workers who spoke to reporters said they considered the wage offer inadequate, given how much the cost of living has increased in the Pacific Northwest. John Olson said his pay had increased just 2% during his 6 years at Boeing. Can you imagine that? Just 2% over 6 years. The last contract we negotiated was 16 years ago, and the company is basing the wage increases off of wages from 16 years ago. So again, not adjusting for inflation. And this is happening all across the country. And people wonder, why are these people going on strike? This is why. Others said that they are unhappy about the company's decision to change the criteria used to calculate annual bonuses. Look at the mask. This guy has a mask and it says strike. I love it. I love it. I love this one too. This picture, happy strike day, the 13th. I love this. They definitely played into the Friday the 13th there. The machinists make $75,608 per year on average, not counting overtime. And that would have risen to 106,000, a little over 106,000 by the end of the proposed 4-year contract, according to Boeing. Okay. For those who thinks that that sounds like a lot of money, again, in Washington state, that's another one of those states that is very expensive. So we can talk about those states when we talked about it before for the Outer Reach report: California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New York, Washington state. Like, these states are expensive to live in. And what has happened is because they have not renegotiated, I guess, since the past 16 years, they are already behind where they should be for wages if we're calculating in inflation as well. But it's not just Boeing that is falling into that situation. There are other companies that have also had this issue where their contract hasn't been renegotiated for so many years, and now's the time for them to renegotiate, and they're already behind the ball where they should be for wages. So just keep that in mind. Under the rejected contract, workers would have received 3,000 lump sum payments and a reduced share of health care costs in addition to pay raises. Boeing also met a key union demand by promising to build its next new plane in Washington state. However, the offer fell short of the union's initial demand for pay raises of 40% over 3 years. The union also wanted to restore traditional pensions that were axed a decade ago, but settled for an increase in new Boeing contributions to employee 401k retirement accounts of up to $4,160 per worker. Let me highlight this 401k here for just a second. This is what companies have kind of moved towards, because the reality is, back in the day, like back in my parents' day, and maybe more so my grandparents' day, some of these companies used to give employees actual pension. And so when they retired from the company, they would actually still receive a pension. So fast forward to my generation, and I've never seen that. I've never had a job where I received a pension or was given a pension, if I were to retire or leave the company. So things have definitely changed. What they have done is they have implemented this 401k, right? So they tell you, oh, let me show you your compensation package. You make $75,000 a year here with us at Boeing, but your compensation package is actually $125,000 when you add in all the benefits we give you. And of course, some of those benefits include the 401k, which actually doesn't make any sense because that's your money anyway. Like, how are you including that in the compensation package as something that you're giving me when it's actually my money that's going into it? So a lot of companies have moved to that model. The head of the union local IAM District 751, President John Holden, said the union would survey members to find out which issues they want to stress when negotiations resume. Boeing responded to the strike announcement by saying it was ready to get back to the table to reach a new agreement. The message was clear that the tentative agreement we reached with IAM leadership was not acceptable to the members. Duh. We remain committed to resetting our relationship with our employees and the union. So that's the response there from the company. And you can see the machinist there. And let me tell you something. You can't do anything at a lot of these factories without machinists. Like, you kind of need these guys. And something here that I want to highlight as well. During the strike, Boeing will lose an important source of cash. Airlines pay most of the purchase price when they take delivery of a new plane. West said that Boeing, which has about $60 billion in total debt, is now looking at ways to conserve cash. He declined to estimate the financial impact of the strike, saying it would depend on how long the walkout lasts. So, before the strike, new CEO Kelly Ortberg gathered feedback from workers during visits to factory floors, and he is already at work to get an agreement that meets and addresses their concerns. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre and Biden administration officials have contacted Boeing and the union. So let me put this out right here. Of course, the Biden administration is going to contact them because they rely on Boeing, right? Defense relies on Boeing. So, you know, they were going to reach out just like they reached out to the railroad workers. Right. We believe that they need to negotiate in good faith and work towards an agreement that gives employees benefits that they deserve. It would make the company grow stronger as well. So let's talk about who will be affected by this, because this is the part I think a lot of people really want to hear. What does the Boeing strike mean for flyers? Those of you that like to get up in the air and fly away. Let's get into that. We'll close this little video here. It is not clear whether the labor stoppage will have an impact for the flying public, although there are concerns about a potential effect on air travel next summer. U.S. carriers that rely heavily on Boeing planes include Southwest, United, and Alaska Airlines. Southwest is horrible, by the way. In a statement, Southwest said its operations were unlikely to be affected in the short term by any production delays Boeing may end up suffering. Earlier this year, Southwest Airlines took steps to address potential delivery disruptions. As a result, we currently have the fleet needed to fulfill our upcoming schedules. We remain in close communication with Boeing. Southwest exclusively uses Boeing 737 planes made in Renton, Washington, one of the sites now on strike by members of the International Association Machinists of and Aerospace Workers. So let's go forward here. When it comes to United, a United spokesperson said the carrier was working with Boeing to understand what the impact to their airline delivery schedule may be. And a spokesperson for Alaska Airlines did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. So I do just want to jump in here and say that this really all depends on how long this strike is going to last. If it's just a short strike, it seems like for the most part, they won't be affected. But if this strike with Boeing continues for quite some time, then Southwest, United, and Alaska Airlines will be impacted. And of course, the federal government has reached out to Boeing because that affects defense as well. So just something to keep in mind. I don't know how long this strike is going to last. They just went on strike like as of midnight. But we will have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But again, this goes back to the cost of living issue. You know, I think a lot of those workers at Boeing wouldn't be asking for the amount that they're asking for if the housing prices were affordable, if rent was affordable where they live in Washington State. Again, that is one of the more expensive areas. And also, contracts should not wait 16 years to be renegotiated. And that's part of the reason why, you know, anytime we're having like inflation, especially for a longer period of time, I think these contracts need to have new negotiations, because the reality is that 25% over the next 4 years, that does not adjust for inflation. And that is why those employees decided to go on strike. So we will keep an eye on this and we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Fam. Yeah. Let's go to some of the comments here. Sandra said, Boeing is in major trouble anyway, I heard, due to the sanctions on China. They're not able to get the necessary components for aircrafts. Oof. Boeing has not had a good past couple of years. Spark Joy, Air Canada pilots are about to go on strike as well. Wow. Okay. That's another one I need to keep an eye out for. I'm sorry, guys. My hair is bothering me. And it's like not staying in place. And it's really bothering me. Like, just stay. Don't move. Okay. Obese Dragonfly. I'm a machinist, and I can say machinists with the kind of skill required to work at Boeing should be getting paid way more than that. That's good to know. I like your picture there. It's interesting. And thank you, Eric Gray, for the super chat. Every labor union needs to be an anarcho-syndicalist federation so that they are fully worker self-directed. Thank you so much for that. Well, we'll keep a lookout for it, guys. We will keep a lookout.